So there's an interesting fact about this video. I'm only writing this because there's literally no light on my apartment and I need to do something to kill time. Since I can't dick around on the internet, I just have to dick around with my Word documents. Plus, I bought a new mic, so I kinda wanna test it. There are some other videos I have planned, but this one is probably the easiest and the shortest. So I've recently been revisiting some of my older scripts and thinking about the future of the Yakuza games, more specifically Kamurocho. So why is that? Well, there's this thing I've noticed for a while, which is that the Yakuza series might be one of the few ones that can manage to get away with recycling the setting, simply because everyone loves Kamurocho. I mean, who wouldn't? It's such an iconic setting. And I generally felt that way, but it's also one of those things that aren't necessarily hard to explain why. I mean, if we look back to the PS2 games, this city had fixed camera angles which limited the scope of the city in terms of how much it could be visualized. Then Yakuza 3 came along with a new engine that gave a jump to the game's visual fidelity in order to catch up to the PlayStation 3 generation, and the city could now be explored in a three-dimensional open arena fashion. Then in Yakuza 4, they expanded the underground and rooftop system, plus adding a hidden area called Little Asia that added more depth to the city. Yakuza 5 wasn't super revolutionary, although it does differ from the previous titles in the sense that it was now running on a different engine. Although I would say that Yakuza 0 did a better job of taking advantage of the new engine, largely because it came as a cross-platform game and they needed to improve the visual fidelity that the game had in order to transition to the PlayStation 4 era. Plus, this was taking place during the bubble era of Japan, which gave a lot of room for the aesthetic of the city to feel different from what we were used to. Although for Yakuza 6, the exact opposite happened in that they put a lot of effort in making Kamurocho look like modern day Tokyo, plus the addition of the Dragon engine, which took the Yakuza game to a whole new level in terms of graphics, size, and physics. However, that's when things kind of peaked for me. I say this because several months ago, when I played the Lost Judgment Trial and I was going through the first mission, that was probably the first time I felt like I was kind of sick of Kamurocho, and I think this can be justified by looking back and realizing that we've had the Dragon engine since 2016. 5 games in total have used this, and overall there haven't been too many changes in terms of the city's scope and level of detail. We have seen some marginal changes, particularly in Judgment, but even then, I do get the sense that I'm not feeling the same level of refreshment that I continuously felt whenever I played a new game back in the earlier titles. And I guess it does also help that back then they were juggling between different engines and with each one trying to tweak it ever so slightly. With the Dragon engine, I do really like it, and I've liked what they've been doing ever since they introduced it. I'm still excited to see the studio developing more games under this engine that they created, but I also think that now that we've entered a new generation of consoles, I'm hoping that they can expand it a bit more, and if they're gonna continue making the Yakuza games, assuming that it will take place in Kamurocho, I really don't want to see the same city that has been in a relatively stagnant state for 5 years. I do have some suggestions. For one, I really want them to add the underground and rooftop system from Yakuza 4. This is something that I really miss from that game, and I hope that they can implement it in some way, especially because a lot of buildings in Kamurocho already have interior designs, even if you only have access to them doing certain exclusive missions, and in some of those buildings we do see rooftops, so I do wish to see more of that. I also think that they can consider opening up the city and giving us access to some of the areas blocked by invisible walls, which would kind of be weird because technically speaking they're not even a part of Kamurocho. To be honest, I would be even happier if they opened up even more space and adding smaller areas alongside Kamurocho, besides doing the usual of catching a taxi to go to an entirely different prefecture. But I don't think that's very realistic, so a more reasonable wish would be to just simply giving us access to some of the streets that are locked to a minimal extent. It's either that or just making Kamurocho itself bigger, but that would require changing the map design of the city, something that I'm not even sure if I want. But that's all I really have to say. I mean, personally speaking, I think they're definitely gonna change Kamurocho, assuming that they are gonna use this city in future games, because keep in mind that now that we have a new protagonist, it's possible that we might spend even more time in Yokohama and maybe not as much time in Kamurocho, but I don't know, we just have to wait and see what they have to do. But anyway, that's all I have to say. Goodbye.